I'm Kami Claybrook at Warner Park and welcome you to a virtual hummingbird celebration, a partnership event with Metro Davidson County Parks and Friends of Warner Parks. Today, I'm excited to introduce John Carew from the Wood Thrush Shop. John has been a wonderful friend to the park and to the Hummingbird Happy Hour event, a fundraising event for the bird program here at Warner Parks.
Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us for Virtual Hummingbird Day. And thanks to the great staff of the Warner Park Nature Center for inviting us to participate. Hopefully, we'll be able to do this in person back at the Nature Center next year. My name is John Carew, and I'm the owner of the Wood Thrush Shop, Nashville's oldest birding store. The video you just saw of hummingbirds feeding was taken right here on my back porch in August 2 years ago. As you can see, we get quite a few hummingbirds. I've been asked by the Nature Center staff to speak to you about hummingbird feeders and related products and to provide you with some information that will help you attract and feed hummingbirds and have a better, more enjoyable experience. Over the 25 years I've owned the Wood Thrush Shop, I've talked with thousands of people about feeding hummingbirds, and I consistently hear of some very common mistakes made, especially in the early spring months when hummingbirds begin arriving and migrating through Tennessee. And there tends to be a fair amount of misunderstanding of their time here in the U.S. It helps to understand why hummingbirds are here in the first place. Hummingbirds make that long journey from Central and South America every spring for one reason and one reason only. And I can assure you, it's not because we offer sugar water in our feeders. The reason they come here is to breed and raise young, and they've been doing this for many thousands of years. All too often, people's expectations of seeing hummingbirds at their feeders in early spring are a bit unrealistic. Hummingbirds do begin arriving around the 1st of April. However, their interest in feeders is minimal at this time. I hear of people putting out 3 and 4 feeders filled to capacity and then become frustrated when they see only one bird one time, or maybe none at all. Eventually, they give up and then neglect their feeders, thinking they've missed them. So now that we have a little basic information about hummingbirds, let's jump over to the Wood Thrush Shop and take a look at some hummingbird feeders and talk about some of the different types and some of the pros and cons. So here we are at the Wood Thrush Shop and our hummingbird feeder display here behind me. If you really want to attract and feed hummingbirds, there are really only 2 types of feeders you should consider: the bottle type and the tray or dish type. Bottle types are the most common style of hummingbird feeder available, and being the most common, they are probably the most recognizable by migrating hummingbirds. It is believed a hummingbird can see a standard feeder from as far as a quarter mile. Most bottle types are good solid choices that come in a variety of sizes and features. Some are quite easy to clean, while some have a lot of moving parts that, if not cleaned regularly and thoroughly, can get pretty dirty and moldy, and that's something you'll want to avoid. They come in a variety of capacities, from 4 ounce all the way to 80 ounce. Hard to believe, but some people actually need an 80 ounce feeder. For the average person, I think an 8 ounce to 12 ounce feeder is best. I'm partial to the Dr. JB's and the Best One feeders, as they have proven to be appealing to the hummers, very durable, and really easy to clean. The Dr. JB's bottle has a wide opening for easy cleaning, and the base comes apart for thorough cleaning as well. That's a nice feature. The Best One is simple, durable, and the bottle holds the 2-piece base together. It comes in an 8 ounce version as well as 32 ounce for those that really get a lot of hummers. Bottle type bases that do not come apart often grow mold in hard to reach areas. I would avoid feeders that don't offer easy cleaning. The tray or dish style feeder has become our favorite to recommend to new hummingbird enthusiasts. The birds like them, they are durable, they have no extra moving parts to lose or wash, they're easy to fill, and most importantly, easy to clean and dishwasher safe. By design, they are also less appealing to bees and wasps. The Nectar never touches the feed ports like the bottle type, where bees can find sugary residue. With a built-in ant moat, it covers many of the most common issues and problems people face with hummingbird feeders. This style of feeder doesn't offer a large capacity like some of the bottle types, but I see this as an advantage for the vast majority of people feeding hummers. Most people don't have a need for more than a 12-ounce capacity. If you don't get enough hummingbird activity to empty a feeder in 3 days during the busiest time of year, a larger feeder makes no sense. This style of feeder is highly recommended. There are a few different brands available and all have very similar features. We really like this Bird's Choice version. There are also decorative feeders that come in an array of colors, shapes, and sizes. Mostly they are decorative and not ideal for hummingbird feeding. Perhaps the most commonly purchased decorative feeder is the tube and stopper style. I would avoid these as this design will always leak. If you really want a decorative hummingbird feeder, I would suggest the top feeding type. They don't leak and are fairly simple to clean. The proper solution is simply 1 part granulated table sugar to 4 parts water. So to make a measured cup of nectar, just add a 1/4 cup of plain white table sugar to a cup of water and stir thoroughly or for a full minute until it's fully dissolved. Perfect. When making larger quantities in the busiest part of the season, I like to bring the water to a boil to ensure the sugar dissolves and then store it in the fridge for a week at a time. It is extremely important to note that in summer heat, nectar is only good for 2 to 3 days. This is another good reason to put smaller amounts of nectar in your feeder until the hummers really start feeding. Less waste. The proper solution is really important. All too often I find that people are altering their nectar to make it sweeter or colorful. This is totally unnecessary and ineffective. Making the nectar sweeter is of no benefit to the hummingbirds and will contribute to the nectar beginning to spoil faster in warmer weather. And you do not want to add color of any kind, as it's completely unnecessary and potentially harmful. Natural sugars and honey are not to be used either. The proper solution is simply 1 part sugar to 4 parts water. Cleaning feeders is as important as fresh nectar. Cleaning is simple and only requires a brush or two, a drop of dishwashing soap, and hot water. Soap it up good using the brush to thoroughly wash. Rinse very well with hot water and it's ready to get back into the action. During the cooler spring months, cleaning once a week is adequate, but as temperatures warm and we get into the hot summer months, at least twice a week is highly recommended. Fresh nectar and clean feeders are the most important elements of feeding hummingbirds. Where you live and the habitat you're surrounded by is the single greatest determining factor for the numbers of hummingbirds you may see. People living in rural areas with an abundance of both wooded and field and meadow areas, which provides more nesting habitat for hummers, will see more birds more frequently. If you live in more suburban to urban areas, you will see hummingbirds, but the numbers will be fewer. Knowing August and September will be the busiest time for feeding hummingbirds, this is the time to put out a few more feeders as they fatten up for the long journey back. At this time, the potential to see more hummingbirds is at its best. Locally, 1 to 2 broods of hummingbirds will have left the nest, so all the babies are learning about the feeders, and with migration in full swing, hummingbirds from northern breeding locations are making their journey southward, funneling through Tennessee, increasing the numbers of hummers we're seeing. So, early season, less feeders; late season, more feeders. Above all, put out a number of feeders you're comfortable dealing with. If you don't have time to maintain lots of feeders, just put out 1 or 2. If it feels too much like work, you probably have out too many feeders. Hummingbirds don't seem to be too concerned with where a feeder is. They generally adapt to the situation the feeder is in, and when the time is right, will come to a feeder, even if you're sitting just inches away. Without a doubt, there is a real advantage to placing your hummingbird feeder in a shadier location as opposed to a very sunny location. When hummingbird activity is at its best in the latter part of July and August, a really sunny location makes the nectar very hot and certainly causes it to spoil much quicker. Wherever you decide to put your feeder, make sure it's where you can be close to the action and see the birds up close, and easily get to it for refilling and maintenance. Your hummingbird feeders will undoubtedly get the attention of some pesky visitors. Without a doubt, bees and ants are the most common pesky issues at hummingbird feeders. Solving ant problems is quite simple and can be accomplished by simply adding one of these little devices above your feeder. It's called an ant trap, but really it's an ant deterrent. By adding water, it acts as a moat, not allowing the ants to proceed to your feeder. Check the water level regularly, as you will find small songbirds like chickadees and finches like to drink from them. Bees are definitely a little trickier to deal with. They are quite persistent and can be a little combative with hummingbirds. Again, the best feeders for keeping bees to a minimum are the dish style. The design of the dish style keeps the nectar from touching the feed ports, thus out of reach of the bees. If you have a bottle type feeder, it is recommended to take the feeder down for a couple of days. Most of the time, this strategy is quite successful. Many bottle type feeders have yellow parts, and it is believed that yellow may be a more appealing color to bees, so either remove the yellow parts if they're not necessary to the feeder, or make them red using a safe acrylic red paint. Raccoons also find the nectar feeders very interesting. So if you notice raccoon activity, it really is best to bring your hummingbird feeder in at night. Thanks again for joining us for Virtual Hummingbird Day. I hope the information in this video will help you understand and enjoy hummingbird feeding more. The next 6 weeks is the busiest time for feeding hummingbirds, so go get a feeder or clean up the ones you already have, make some fresh nectar, and help these fascinating little birds fatten up for migration.